begin where mornings smell like wood smoke and damp earth. Dark trees, a clearing with chores, a cabin that keeps rain out and warmth in as best it can. Phoebe and Mosey was born into that light, 1860, in the tall grass country of western Ohio, a child in a family that counted pennies, then counted them again. Winter took her father when she was small. The house grew quieter, not kinder. Hard times ask for skills most children don't learn so early. Annie Phoebe would become Annie in time, worked, sewed, helped where hands were needed, then began helping where courage was needed. A rifle entered the story, not as a toy, not as a thrill, as a tool. Game in the pot meant brothers and sisters could sleep less hungry. She studied the woods the way other girls studied sampler patterns, tracks, wind light under leaves. Breath in steady, exhale as if you were telling a secret only the barrel should hear. The shot clean, merciful, useful. The local shop bought her game. Hotels bought from the shop. Word traveled that a child was providing meat with a professionalism that shamed some grown men into practicing more. There were years of hardship darker than we will detail at bedtime. Placements with other families that broke more than they mended, rooms where kindness cost extra. And he learned patience and the quiet kind of resolve that does not need witnesses. She came back home when she could and continued the work that kept everyone upright, a habit, formed precision as charity. Fairs arrived like holidays that brought their own weather, rifle, matches, small prizes. A crowd as murmur when a tiny figure lifted a heavy tool and made it do something elegant. Annie's eye learned consistency, her hands learned grace, her chin learned the angle that invites aim. She did not know yet that a vaudeville bill in Cincinnati held her name written in destiny as ordinary handwriting, a traveling marksman with a wager and a sense of theater that would change her life by simply showing up on the wrong day to be unbeatable. Frank Butler's bet, a match in Cincinnati, and to careers that decided to be won, a challenge, a crowd, shots like punctuation marks, and a handshake that read as partnership before either of them said it. Cincinnati, 1875 by many reckonings. Music hall, learning to like the sound of applause. Frank E. Butler, Irish-born, polished, pleasant on a stage, issued a standing challenge to any local shooter. 17 clay birds, thrown one after another. Beat his number and take the purse. A small woman stepped forward, quiet, steady. Phoebe and Mosey on a ledger line, Annie on the bill by the night's end. The birds flew. Annie's barrel tracked with a calm that made nerves in the audience settle. 17 broke like little moans. An 18th followed because grace likes to add its own exclamation. Point. Frank smiled the right kind of smile, not wounded pride, not theater hurt, just admiration given promptly. He invited conversation rather than revenge. Conversation became courtship. Courtship became marriage. On stage they were better together than either had been apart. Frank set up the shot with patter and posture, and he took the shot. The audience learned the pleasure of watching two professionals trust each other. A stage name pinned itself to her like a medal that also fit as jewelry. Annie Oakley, partly from nearby Oakley, Ohio, partly because it sounded like the person the posters were already describing, precise, pleasant, memorable. She practiced relentlessly, not just accuracy but manners, how to bow without boasting, how to move with economy so the trick was the shot and not the person who shot it, how to greet children afterward as if the most important work of the evening was a kind word. The Butlers toured, small halls, county fairs, bigger rooms when bigger rooms asked. The act grew, mirror shots, back-turn hits using a hand mirror, card edges clipped from the air, ashes knocked from a cigarette held at Frank's lips, trust on display, not peril. Audiences left lighter, not rattled. That was Annie's choice. Skill as comfort, precision as a form of courtesy. The larger arena beckoned, Buffalo Bill's Wild West. That traveling encyclopedia of American myth with horses for commas and bugles for capital letters. She said yes, so did the century. Buffalo Bill's Wild West, a tiny figure in a big arena. And Europe learning an American word, sharpshooter, stadiums, grandstands, royal boxes, a woman who stayed humble while the world decided to cheer very loudly.
Buffalo Bill Cody knew how to build a show. He also knew how to spot the kind of reel that keeps a show honest. Annie joined his Wild West in the mid-1880s and became its quiet star. A pony at a canter, a rifle, steady, balloons bursting like bright thoughts. She wore buckskins tailored neat, not costume heavy, not parody, just dignity with fringe. She smiled the way lantern light smiles, warm, without presumption. Europe invited the troupe. London first. Then the continent. Queen Victoria watched with an expression that said delight, while court etiquette practiced restraint. Annie bowed with a sweetness that felt like neighborliness sent across a sea. In Berlin, Crown Prince Wilhelm. Later, Kaiser held a cigarette for her to trim. She obliged with a shot that made diplomacy seem easy for once. In Paris, she drew crowds who preferred precision to bombast, and found they could have both if the hat had enough feathers elsewhere in the arena. Everywhere, the same tone. Fear never part of the act. She did not aim at people. She aimed near with mathematics and moral care. Offstage, she visited hospitals, handed out souvenirs to children, took time with young girls who needed to see a woman doing something exact in public without apology. She taught, when asked and often when not, with patience that suggested there is more power in sharing skill than in hoarding it. The troupe rolled back to America. Annie kept earning the headline while refusing to behave like one. Frank ran the logistics happily. Proud to be stage manager too, the truest shot in a very large show. Then a year when steel forgot its manners, 1901. Train cars coupled and tracks through sparks where none were invited. A crash. Injuries. Newspapers that have been celebrating skill now learn the grammar of recovery. Annie's back hurt. Her wrists scolded. Doctors advised rest. She did not accept permanent remainders. She healed as best she could, and then taught herself to shoot from a bicycle, from an automobile, left-handed when right would not consent. Between shows, a different fight arrived. Inc., a newspaper mogul eager for clicks a century too early, printed a lie that painted Annie as fallen. She sued. Again and again, where the presses had erred. She won judgments as a matter of principle, not greed. The sums were small. The correction was the point. Lawsuits, new acts, and the teacher the next generation needed. Courtrooms, county fairs reborn, marksmanship clinics where young women found their breath and their balance.
The lawsuits took years. Annie persisted politely. Editors printed retractions. A reputation that had never truly dimmed was dusted and set back on its shelf by its rightful owner. She returned to show work less as spectacle and more as conversation, exhibitions at Sportsman's Meet. It's charity events that raised money without raising voice, a traveling demonstration here, a theater week there. No need for the enormous parade now. She taught marksmanship openly. Girls, women, anyone with the patience to practice and the character to respect the tool. Our rules were steady. Safety is not negotiable. Courtesy makes better shots. Confidence keeps the muzzle where it belongs. Annie believed that skill gives freedom to hunt well, to defend farm and family if needed, to stand a little taller in rooms that forget to make space for you. Frank stayed a cheerful constant, packing cases, stringing targets, finding the hotel where they would sleep, and the mechanic who could make the automobile behave long enough for a Saturday demonstration. Stories from this period ring with kindness. A young competitor short on ammunition finds her pouch somehow heavier after a chat with Annie. A shy boy at a county fair walks away with a cut card and a new ambition. Porters who expected arrogance found conversation instead and filed pieces that read like thank you notes. The West as myth slowed down, state lines filled with fences. But Annie's version of the West remained the quiet kind. Responsibility, practice, respect. She wrote some, lectured some, rested more as years requested. When Great War news came, she offered to train soldiers in marksmanship. She did when asked and didn't hold a grudge when bureaucracy failed to use her fully. Last tours, final quiet, and a hand off to Buffalo Bill for her next chapter. A porch I had hung carefully. A legacy counted not in trophies but in steadied hands across a continent. In later years, Annie and Frank settled into a rhythm that suits stories told before sleep. Mornings with coffee, afternoons with letters from fans who wrote in neat cursive and asked advice she answered kindly. Short tours that let town see the glint and grace one more time. She never scolded the new century for being different. She just demonstrated that excellence is a portable virtue. Friends visited. Photographs were taken on porches where dogs felt included. When Buffalo Bill died in 1917, she mourned a colleague and a friend who had made room for her talent and honored it. She kept working a while longer because skill dislikes storage. Illness and accidents do not ask permission. Annie slowed. Frank slowed with her. They kept their partnership like a good biostructural quiet, beautiful to those who understand such things. Annie Oakley died in 1926, Ohio light at the window, quiet around the bed. Frank followed months later as if a duet prefers to end together. What do we keep for our ASMR shelf? That precision can be gentle. That fame can be courteous. That a woman with a rifle can lower a crowd as heart rate if she chooses to make the shot about trust rather than fear. We also keep the image that mattered most to her, a child handed a cut playing card. Mother taught to hold a firearm safely. A line of ladies stepping forward at a fair because someone kind invited them to. From Annie as steady hands, our long western braid loops back to the man who built the tent. So big she could stand in it without stooping, Buffalo Bill Cody. Scout, showman, post-Civil War impresario with a wagon load of myth and enough reel to keep it upright. We will give him the same 5 comparts next, from Pony Express tales to the arena lights, so your listeners drift from precision to pageantry without losing the hush.